For Ibn Arabi, Jesus was the special one in his life. At the beginning of his spiritual journey, when Ibn Arabi was still young, Jesus became his spiritual teacher. In his own words, Ibn Arabi claims, "It was at his hands that I was converted. He prayed for me that I should persist in religion in this world and in the other. And he called me his beloved. He ordered me to practice renunciation and self-denial." Hence, he himself taught us that he was an Isawi or Jesus-like Christian at the beginning of his spiritual life. Here we need to reveal what Ibn Arabi's perspective on Jesus as his first real master in his spiritual life is. Generally, a baby was always born from his mother's womb as a result of intercourse with her husband. That means the baby's body was created by God through a male and a female as a secondary cause or a physical cause. In fact, this is one of the 4 types shown by God in creating humans. Although it is indeed the same species, there are 4 types of creation of the human body by God. First, God created Adam's body not from a male and a female as a secondary cause. As a worldly analogy, Adam's body is like pottery made of clay without going through the marriage of a man and a woman as a secondary cause of its manifestation. Second, God created Eve's body from a male without a female. The emergence of Eve from Adam is like a picture which is then formed from a pile of wood by a sculptor. Third, God created the human body, the descendant of Adam and Eve, from a male and a female, and here we are who came into being through a biological process. Unlike the 2 previous types, this creation stems from a biological process when male water and female water unite. Thus, God then takes over this evolution in the woman's womb, which he then breathes his spirit into it. And the 4th difference from the 3 previous types, this is the body of Jesus. God created Jesus from a woman without a man. Although it is different from the 3 previous types, we can actually find its similarities. The body of Jesus was the same as the body of Adam, the body of the first type, which both existed without biological father. The body of Jesus was both the same and different from Eve, the body of the second type. Both were created from one origin. The difference is that Eve came from male while Jesus from female. And lastly, the body of Jesus was similar to the body of the descendants of Adam and Eve, who were both formed in the womb and born biologically. In addition, a significant difference is that the constitution of the body and the breathing of spirits of all Adam's descendants are sequential events, while in the creation of Jesus, it was not. According to Ibn Arabi, these sequential events didn't occur because the body of Jesus was constituted when the spirit was breathed into it. Ibn Arabi in Fususul Hikam narrates that Gabriel came to Mary in the form of a human being in general, and Gabriel confessed to her that he was sent by God to bestow a holy son. Then Gabriel breathed Jesus into it. Gabriel was nothing but a messenger of God to Mary, as an apostle who brings God's message to his community. Ibn Arabi emphasized the body of Jesus was created from the actual water of Mary and the notional water seed of Gabriel inherent in the moisture of that blowing, since breath from the vital body is moist owing to the elements of water in it. It is important to note that the Gabriel's breathing was in truth imaginal or khoyal, notional, because in essence it was God's spirits that made Mary pregnant, not Gabriel. Ibn Arabi then confirms that without the power of God, the blowing would be futile. Thus we can underline that Jesus appeared in a human form because his mother was a human and because Gabriel appeared in complete human at the time. In another passage, Ibn Arabi confirms that Jesus actually emerged from a spiritual man, namely Gabriel, an angel who at the time took the form of a human. Therefore, it can be said that Jesus was a human in his exteriority and an angel in his interiority. In another occasion, Ibn Arabi emphatically stated that Jesus was half human and half spirit. This means that the life of Jesus was none other than the essence of Gabriel. He was not a being who had a spirit, but he was a spirit. According to Ibn Arabi, Jesus was not like other humans because his form was imaginal, or his form was the incarnation of his spirit. Therefore, the relationship between the body of Jesus and his spirit was inherent, corresponding, a body that was attracted by the spirit realm. According to Su'ad Hakim, that was what made Ibn Arabi somewhat confused about how to describe it. Ibn Arabi describes Jesus sometimes as an imaginal form, or sometimes as the incarnation of the spirit, or as a person born between a spirit and a human, or as a person closer to the form than the body. That is why, according to Ibn Arabi, Jesus is called the Spirit of God in the Quran Ruhullah. In this case, then, Ibn Arabi explained the reason why the miracles of Jesus were so supernatural and exceptional. First of all, Ibn Arabi describes the function of the Spirit of God by narrating, "Thus did As-Samir arrogate to himself some of the influence of the messenger Gabriel, who is a spirit. When he realized that it was Gabriel, and knowing that all he touched would come alive, As-Samiri snatched some of his power, either with his hand or with his fingertips. Then he transferred it to the golden calf so that it bellowed, which is the sound cattle make." The point here is the same when Gabriel breathed into Mary, which later formed Jesus, since Gabriel as Holy Spirit has power to give life. Here Ibn Arabi wants to emphasize the mechanism of how Jesus turned an inanimate clay into a bird, and of how Jesus had ability to quicken the dead. Because Jesus himself is Gabriel's breath, which in itself has the power to give life, so he can make out of clay the figure of a bird, or he can quicken the dead, and his other miracles. In detail, Ibn Arabi elucidated that Jesus, as mentioned earlier, was a combination of Mary's water and Gabriel's breath. Mary's water was actual because it was Mary's womb that actually conceived Jesus, while Gabriel's breath was imaginal or notional because it was the Spirit of God that made Mary pregnant, not Gabriel's breath. Ibn Arabi unravels, thus bringing the dead to life was attributed to him both actually and notionally. Concerning the former, it is said of him, "And he, God, revives the dead," while of the latter, "You will breathe into it, the clay, and it will become a bird by my permission." The clay bird here occupies the actual one in the miracle of Jesus, just as Mary's womb was actual when she was pregnant. On the other hand, the breath of Jesus was imaginal or notional because his breath didn't contain any power of life. It was the Spirit of God embedded in the breath of Jesus, giving rise to life. In this miracle, the breath of Jesus was merely the notional one, while the Spirit of God was the principal actor in the miracle. Regarding the divinity of Jesus, for the reason of this kind of miracle, Ibn Arabi gives another illustration similar to the miracle of Jesus, when he, Bayezid Bastami, blew on an ant he had killed, and it came alive again. At the very moment he knew who it was that blew, so he blew into it. In that respect, he was like Jesus. From the quote, actually, Ibn Arabi wanted to highlight that Bayezid could also quicken the dead, just like Jesus, As-Samiri, and Gabriel, to show the fact that the miracle or the supernatural ability to give life is not confined to Jesus. Perhaps Ibn Arabi wants to question, even though all four of them can quicken the dead, why is Jesus only considered God? I'm waiting for you in the comment.